Unity of the Huachucas presents Reverend Charli Tupper.
Open hands, open heart, open mind.
Good morning, everyone. My talk title today is Open Hands, Open Heart, Open Mind. Today we are talking about a book called The Grace Trail. And I was introduced to this book through my spiritual direction program. And the Grace Trail is a process that the author came up with that is a process of how do we transform our thinking? How do we transform those experiences in our lives, some of those challenging, difficult experiences in our lives? She came up with the idea when she was in the Appalachian Mountains and she saw people walking the Appalachian Trail. And she was talking to a merchant up there, and the merchant told her that most of the people who are walking the trail right now are veterans. They're walking off their war. And this got her thinking. It got her thinking about, what does it look like to walk off your war? You know, the war of your own life, those challenging experiences that we've had, some of them maybe even traumatizing. How do we let go of those so that we can fully engage in the power and the presence of the divine? So last week, Reverend Donna talked about gratitude. And we begin with gratitude. And it's, what can I be grateful in the midst of what is going on? What can I be grateful for? Because there's always things we can be grateful for. It can be simple things. It can be a flower. It can be someone who gives you a phone call. It can be very simple things. The coziness of your own bed. The second step on the Grace Trail is the step of release. And the way that she words this step of release is she words it by saying, even though things are tough, I choose to let go. Even though things are tough, I choose to let go. So what does that look like? What does it look like to choose to let go in the midst of whatever is going on? So I want to share a story with you. This is one of my favorite healing stories in the Bible. It comes from John 5 and begins with verse 2. Now in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, there was a pool called in Hebrew Bethsatha, which has 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been there for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I am making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." At once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and he began to walk. The man had been laying there for 38 years, waiting for that miracle to come happen to him. waiting for something outside of himself to shift so that he could heal. But he had no one. And to me, it sounds like, he's in that desperate place of that we can get into, of feeling like there's just no hope for change. Everything feels so out of control. But Jesus says, pick up your mat and walk. Pick up the foundation of your beliefs and walk. Don't lay on it. Don't just rest on it, but take action. I love that he tells the man to get up and walk, because the grace trail is actually, the way that it is designed is, it is a walking practice. It is, you ask the question and you're walking and listening for the answers to come forward. And then you ask the next question and you're walking and you're waiting for the answers to come forward. Jesus says, take up your mat and walk. We must be willing to let go in order to step into the new. Now, this sounds simple, doesn't it? Sometimes it's not simple. Sometimes it takes a tremendous amount of courage and willingness to step into the unknown in order to release. Even when what we are hanging on to will kill us. And I mean that from a metaphorical and a literal standpoint. I have in my life hung on to things so tightly that it has damaged my health and could have killed me if I did not let go. Letting go is the power of release. It is that power of release within us. And this power of release requires an act of faith, will, strength, power, and understanding. So let's take a look at faith. In faith, we must be willing to believe it is possible, not only to exist without what we are holding on to, but that we can thrive in a new and wonderful way. And we may not know what that looks like yet. The man at the pool had to be willing to let go of being an invalid. And if he had stopped to think about all the repercussions of what that meant, which so often the ego does, oh, you can't let go. You can't let go because of how this will change your life. You'll have to get a job. People will expect you to do things besides just lay by the pool. But he took that risk. He stepped out in faith and he picked up his mat. Having faith in the law of release opens us to what we want, but up until now have been stuck in what has always been. This power of release works alongside will, the power of will. And the power of will is the power of making a decision, choosing to let go of the past, Release your grip on what was or what you thought should have been, and open yourself to what is and what is possible. Only this way can our greatest good and even more be possible for us. We have to be willing to make a choice. The man at the pool chose to stand up. He chose to pick up his mat. He chose to walk, which required strength. In strength, we must activate the spirit. We must be willing to engage our inner fortitude to hold the new possibilities in awareness, even when they do not appear to be happening. Inner strength allows us to stand in the gap between what was and what is coming. And yes, there's often a gap in between the two. We make that choice. We make that choice to choose to stand up and walk. And then after we make that choice to stand up and walk, then we choose to engage the power of will and the power of strength, so that we have that inner strength. And that inner strength works alongside the power of power. We know that God is the one presence and power. And when we really know this to be true, we can activate this power when doubts come into our mind. And doubts will come into our mind. The ego will say things like, "Who do you think you are? What if you fail?" This power reminds us that with God, all things are possible. Even this, whatever this is that we want to release in order so that we can step into something new, even this. And so whenever something is happening in our lives and we want to release it, we can say, the power of God is active even in this, and I choose to let it go. Understanding is our power to make wise choices, made from a conscious place of knowing, from a conscious place of being able to comprehend what our steps are. And so we need that power of understanding so that we know our next step and our next step and our next step. See, because when we engage with the power of release, it's not about just, okay, I'm going to let that go and I don't know what's going to happen. We have an understanding of what we want. What are we wanting to create in our lives? And so when we engage in that we want to create in our lives, then we have the power within us to understand. Now, that doesn't mean that we know every detail and every what if. It means we understand both with our mind and our heart. The power of release is all about letting go. It's about letting go and entering into a demonstration of a greater experience. Now, it may not look like a greater experience in the worldly stands. Maybe what you let go of is something that has just been a lot of work. It served at one point. It was great. But now, not so much. An example I might use is I know someone who lives in a 2-story house. And the master bedroom is upstairs. But this person is now having trouble climbing the stairs with ease and coming down the stairs with ease. And there's a lot of stairs and they're steep. And so this person is looking to release this beautiful home that served their family so well for so many years. But now is larger than they need. And they have different needs. And so now they're looking to release that family dwelling in order to be able to live with more ease, to make it easier, not so much work. So releasing old ideas about ourselves is one form of release. So when I'm talking about, just for a second, when I'm talking about this person who's looking at releasing their home, they have to be willing to release the old idea about themselves, what they were capable of doing, and now what they're capable of doing. They're not any less of a person. They're still the great, wonderful person they are. Through the power of release, we can engage in stuff that opens us up to really thrive in new ways. To really thrive in new ways. Another form of release is the releasing of old ideas about ourselves and others in our lives. This is the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is actually an act, a demonstration of releasing ourselves from the pain and hurt that we have experienced. Forgiveness is about opening ourselves up in a way that we can let go. We open our hands, we open our hearts, we open our minds to let go. And we can't have that wall of resentment in front of us, because if we have that wall of resentment in front of us, then we can't let go. It just bounces off the wall and comes back to us. That's what resentment does. That's why there's that old adage of resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Now that we can laugh about that and we can say, oh, that's absurd. But so is when we see it as a wall in front of us, and that when we resent, we put that energy out, it bounces off that wall and it comes back and it hits us. When you're in a place of resenting someone, how do you feel? Do you feel joyous and free? I don't know about you, but I don't. I don't feel joyous and free when I'm in a place of resentment. Resentment actually means to rethink, to rethink, to rethink. So you're thinking the same thought over and over and over and over again. And it builds an energy, and it's not it doesn't feel good. So it's really a gift to ourselves when we forgive. It's a gift to ourselves. There's a Hindu teaching that I came across this week. And it's called Indira's Net. And this comes from a book called The Inner Camino. And it says, Indira, the Hindu king of gods, created the cosmos as a multidimensional web that was infinite in size. This net consists of jewels and at every knot and every intersection. There's a jewel. And in that jewel reflects every time it moves. Every time the net moves, that jewel reflects. It reflects light. And it reflects light onto other jewels. So I just want you to imagine that for a minute. Just imagine this massive net. We've all seen big nets with the knots in them and the intersections. And just imagine that people are all these knots and intersections. And you move your jewel into the light. You move your jewel into the light of forgiveness, and that light goes out and reflects on all those other jewels. And you aid them in the power of forgiveness. See, we don't do anything alone. And so when we get that nudge within us to forgive, it's because somebody else forgave someone and they turned their light, and that light hit us and illumined within us what needed to be let go of. So when we forgive, we stop inflicting hurt on ourselves. Now, I am a Big Bang Theory fanatic. I love the show, The Big Bang Theory. It has, if you don't know what this is, it's a sitcom that engages, there's 4 physicists, all in different fields, and 3 physicists and an engineer, all in different fields, and then 3 women, and as the core group. Well, one of the physicists, his name is Sheldon, and Sheldon is just in his head all of the time. And so he's at a party and he's telling Lamar Burton has done something that Sheldon didn't like. And so he tells Lamar Burton, "You're on my enemies list. That's it. You're on my enemies list." And Lamar looks at Will Wheaton, and Will says, "And don't worry, it doesn't take much time or energy." Because his enemies list is all about him. Nobody cares that they're on that person's enemy list. And it doesn't affect those people's lives in the way that you think that it should. You think that by being on your enemies list, and you might want to ask yourself if you have one, by thinking about those people, we think about that hurt and pain. And again, it hits that wall and it comes back, it hits us. People are going to disappoint us. People are going to hurt us. This is part of the challenge that we face in this human life. And the greatest gift we can give to ourselves is to practice the power of release and forgiving. How many times? That's right, 70 times 7, which means until it's complete. I have a friend who told me that she worked through something until she can be grateful for it. When she can release it enough that she can be grateful for it. But she has to go through the process. And so often we think that, well, just forgive them. Just let that go. When we say that we have let go of something, but we haven't gone through the process, we probably haven't let go. We've probably stopped it. And it will come back. So one of the ways to engage release is through spiritual practice. Spiritual practice keeps us in the flow of life. One way that I have done this is by writing down everything that no longer serves me. Every belief, every person. Usually when I have somebody touches one of my buttons, it's because there's a belief that needs to be released, a belief about myself or a belief about others needs to be released. And so I write it all out. No holds barred. Okay. So this is not my most spiritual self with my little halo on. And then I write, I am willing to release this and this and this because I'm so spiritual. Now, is this okay? I'm done. I am done with this and I am ready to let it go. I am ready to let go of, and I write it out. And then I put it aside for 24 hours. And then I come back and I reread it and I adjust it as needed. And then I destroy it. I either shred it, and I might shred it with my hands. I am letting this go. I might stick it in the shredder and just watch it go. I might burn it and watch it go into ash. But however I release it, I'm releasing that energy that would hold us back. Another practice that keeps those doors open is called the 30-day release practice. And it goes like this. On each day of the month, you release as many items as is the number of that day. So on the first day of the month, you release one item. On the 30th day of the month, you release 30 items. Now, it can become a playful game because sometimes when you're up there in those higher numbers in the 20s and get up into those higher numbers, it's like, oh, well, what am I going to release? Well, how about old thoughts? How about, all those pens that you have? This is me. I did this once. I released all the pens that did not work that were on my desk, that were in the jar on my desk. I released them. Hangers, old hangers in the closet. I released them. Clothes, release it. Books, release them. Whatever it is that you have that extra stuff that is taking up space and energy in your life, it's a great way to practice really letting go. I want to close with this quote. And this is Jesus. Jesus says this in Luke. He's quoting Isaiah 61:1. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to build up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. What if we claim this for ourselves? This is what is possible through the power of release. Well, let's take this into meditation. So let's just take a moment. And breathe into this space. Imagine a net over the sanctuary, connecting every single one of you. And that net goes out beyond the building, connecting those who are connected to us. And those lights are shimmering. The net gently moves, and the lights shimmer on each other, awakening that truth within us. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me. You may take a moment and imagine Jesus walking up to you and saying, "Do you want to be healed?" Pick up your mat and walk. Imagine yourself standing up and picking up your mat and walking. Walking away from what has held you back and walking toward that greater good, that liberation and freedom. I open my hands, my heart, and my mind to demonstrating the power of release in my life. And so it is. Amen.